One. And last.
Good evening. This is Rudy Giuliani with America's Mayor Live. Live is an important word because is Joe Biden still, I don't know if he ever was our president, but Joe Biden, to add even more grief to the hostages that he and Kamala Harris didn't do a damn thing to help extricate. Even Jimmy Carter tried. He never talks about them. He never mentions them. The amount of suasion that we have over Qatar could have, if we were willing to sacrifice something, push something, who knows what crooked deals would have gotten interrupted. We could have gotten those hostages out. I don't know why we have an extrication force, world renowned, if we didn't use it to save our Americans and some of our friends, the Israelis. The Israelis did a little of it. We're expert at it. I've been with the SEALs, and they've shown me how they prepare. And they've given me the statistics on their ability to extricate against far more sophisticated terrorists and warriors than these people who blow themselves up when they shoot bombs at Israel. I mean, the press, like Harris and the Democrats and Walls, are somehow in love with the Palestinians. But the reality is that, you know, when you look at those Palestinian losses, and I don't trust a single word that they put out, somewhere around 20 to 25% are probably caused by them. Particularly in the part of the war when they were bombing Israel, a good percentage of the bombs were backing up and killing them. Now, so who killed them, the Israelis or the Palestinians? Who's responsible for the death of children that's put in front of, the leader of a local Hamas regime? Who's responsible for that? Who's responsible for putting the headquarters, the people who are planning to kill you, below a hospital? Every one of those things I mentioned is also a violation of international law. And now the incredible is happening. Hamas has murdered 6 hostages in cold blood, one an American. They did it in cold blood. Israel didn't shoot them. You don't get to shoot and kill hostages. Whether Israel reached a ceasefire or not, you don't get to kill hostages. But you do with the Biden administration and with cackling Kamala and Comrade Walz and with the American press, who now blame it all on Bibi. If Bibi had only reached a ceasefire, the people would have been returned. That would be like after Pearl Harbor, if the Japanese had taken hostages, we were told you can't retaliate for what they did at Pearl Harbor if you want to get your hostages back. And Roosevelt would have said, oh, sure, I'm going to do what the modern day communist inclined Democrats want. And that is, I'm going to not retaliate and get my 4 hostages back. Let Hitler take over the world. This is war. This is a war. It is well known that when you negotiate for hostages or you negotiate for kidnappers, you get more hostages and more kidnappers. That isn't rocket science. Having been in law enforcement for a good long time and having handled kidnappings, I can tell you that without any doubt. It is very difficult for the families involved, extremely difficult for the families involved to see it that way. I don't know that I would see it that way if I was involved, but I'm not one of the families involved. So I can get to look at the whole picture. To do a ceasefire will kill more Israelis. As soon as Hamas wants the next thing, they'll grab some more Israelis. Now, this was a perfect case for an attempted extrication. And you wouldn't believe, and if you want to talk, if they'll talk about it, I'll see if I can get some of the retired SEALs to come in and tell you the success that we've had with that. This is a small territory, only a few places they could have been. And you cannot believe how good our people are at it. We didn't even try. We didn't even try. That's just letting them die, Biden. Let's just let them die. Then you make the following statement. I've spoken to the American hostage, spoke to his mom and dad, and we're not giving up. We're going to continue to push as hard as we can. He was referring to Hirsch Goldberg Pollitt, who was one of the 6 that was killed. But he spoke to him. He's never spoken to him. He's never spoken to any of them. He has never mentioned their names. Only name I ever heard him refer to was Hirsch. And he did it by claiming that he saw him in the audience in Washington when he was being held hostage in Gaza. Now, is a president who is suffering from that kind of severe mental illness capable of rescuing hostages? They took Ronald Reagan to get our hostages out of Iran. It's going to take Donald Trump to get them out of there, if they don't kill them first. There's not. Netanyahu is just trying to minimize the slaughter of his own people. You can't give up a whole country. You can't give up to a group that is committed long-term to the destruction of his country. Now, because they are demonstrating against it. Then he would be like Kamala Harris, a weakling, a traitor, a person who'll go in any direction because she doesn't really care about the United States. One of the congressmen from California, one with a particularly big mouth, Ro Kahana, is now predicting that she's going to flip, and she is going to threaten Israel with deprivation of weapons if they continue to fight. So if Israel continues to eliminate the people who want to eliminate them, we're going to take their weapons from them. I mean, that's something a little crazy about that, right? A lot crazy about it. Well, today we were quite surprised to learn that for a number of years, a dyed-in-the-wool, red Chinese spy was working for Governor Cuomo and Governor Hochul. She got arrested and indicted. It's a long series of frauds that she was involved in, briberies that she was involved in. Her major role with them was to get them to do things for China, to manipulate them for China, which I don't think, unlike Comrade Walls, they did on purpose. In the case, I mean, they never said things like socialism is one man's socialism is another man's neighborliness, which would indicate that Walls had incorporated the brainwashing that he had been taught to do from the time he went to China 30 years ago, sponsored by Harvard, and then back there 30 times teaching. You realize that that really condemns him completely, because you can't go back, you can't go to China and teach anything but red Chinese dogma. They're not going to let you teach. For a long time, we've had people here in the United States that are apologists for China. They probably are the most expert at doing that of any country in the world. Whenever anything critical is said of China, you'll see all kinds of strange people getting up defending them, including when Trump cut off the Chinese that were being sent around to kill people with COVID. When Red China was sending people around to Europe, and he cut them off before anybody else did. It was, of course, the people paid by China, like Biden, who accused him of being a xenophobe, or people like Senator Feinstein, who had a Chinese communist driver for 19 years, I think it was, or Swalwell, who was having sex with a Chinese, I guess, prostitute, but a very well-trained prostitute. Now, Swalwell, if I recall correctly, is still in Congress, but that's because he's a Democrat. And Democrats are allowed to do anything because we don't have justice in America. And Feinstein is revered as a great senator. I don't know how you can be a great senator with a Chinese communist spy hanging on your backside for 19 years. But that's the kind of country Biden has made this, huh? So the situation in Arlington, I just can't leave that. I can't leave it because it's an illustration of just how irresponsible, mean, insensitive, anti-American, anti-military, and stupid Harris and Biden are. We'll be right back. What do we have delivers on its promise to do good and never forget the sacrifices America's greatest heroes have made for us. Heroes who risked their lives to keep our communities and our country safe. Heroes like United States Marine Corps Captain and pilot John Jeremy Sachs. Captain Sachs sustained fatal injuries when his military aircraft crashed during training, killing him and 5 other service members. He's remembered by loved ones as courageous, brilliant, and devoted to his career, family, and friends. John is survived by his wife, Amber, who gave birth to their second daughter 3 months after his death. Tunnel to Towers paid the mortgage on the family home for Amber and their 2 daughters. The foundation has helped over 1,000 military and first responder families navigate the worst of times by removing the burden of a mortgage payment. Our nation's heroes and their families need your help now more than ever. Donate $11 a month to Tunnel to Towers at T2T.org. T2T.org. That's T, the number 2T.org. T2T.org. Please donate now. You know, it's very unusual. Welcome back, by the way, to America's Mayor Live. It's very unusual to have Gold Star family speak out this directly. But it's also very unusual to have a president that was so intimately involved in having their loved ones killed, a vice president who applauds it and was the last person in the room before it happened, doesn't acknowledge it at all. And then worse than that, does things that if you've ever lost a loved one, you have to know are particularly mean and insensitive, like standing there at the ceremony looking at his watch, talking about how his son died in combat. His son died 6 years after combat. It's a complete one of 2,512 Biden presidential lies, which adds to the million that he told throughout his life. The man is not just a pathological liar. It is absolutely too weak to say that. He's a mentally ill liar, way back from the time he ran in 1987 and 88, where liberal journalists said that. But those liberal journalists now are complete sellouts, either to the Democrat Party or maybe to the Communist Party. Let's listen to one of the family members. Which one do we have teed up, Ted?
Play our first one we have. We have them all here. We'll start with the Gold Star family member, Darren Hoover. He's the father of Staff Sergeant Taylor Hoover.
My name is Darren Hoover, and I'm the Gold Star father of United States Marine Corps Staff Sergeant Taylor Hoover. Kamala, I want you to understand, and I know it will be difficult for you because you lack empathy and basic understanding. The events that happened on August 26, 2024, with President Trump at Arlington National Cemetery were solemn and in keeping with the reverence and respect that is given to all members of our military that are buried there. We invited President Trump. We are the ones that asked for the video and the pictures to be taken at the tomb of the unknown soldier. This was a very solemn wreath laying in our son's name, along with the Sergeant Nicole G family, as well as two of our catastrophically injured military members that were there on that horrific day in the honor of our Abbey Gate 13.
I don't know. I don't know how they can live with themselves. The greed of Biden has to be endless with the amount of money that he's taken. His son telling us, all in writing, ignored by the press, even the conservative press, that over the last 30 years, I've given half my salary to my father. What did his salary consist of? Influence payments, most of it from China, some of it from Russia, some of it from Ukraine, some of it from other countries, but the most of it from an enemy of the United States. Why is he in the White House? Because they covered up the hard drive that would have proved that I put out almost 4 years ago to the day. Well, actually, it was at the end of this month. Instead of using the hard drive, they did what they could to persecute me and Steve Bannon and the president, and tried to flip it around. Succeeded in many ways. You can let them succeed completely and take your country from you. They've already taken it from us. This isn't a question of stopping America from going communist. We have. We're there. That is what Biden and cackling Kamala are presiding over. And what it says about us is we don't fight hard enough. We don't. I mean, you do. I do. But I will tell you that when I was fighting the battle for President Trump and got all of these witnesses on record about how the election was stolen, I had to do it in front of legislatures. Courts wouldn't let me do it because most of the courts were in crooked cities. Crooked cities mean crooked courts. But in any event, we decided very early on that we would go to the state legislatures. And we had to fight like hell to accomplish that. Luckily, we had loyal Republicans there. We had to fight the Republicans. I mean, in Michigan, I don't know. You got Republicans that are might as well be Democrats. Look what they let that Benson get away with. Right now, she's trying. The Secretary of State who disposed of ballots illegally in 2020, and the election we're not allowed to say was crooked. And yet, notice I abide by that. And she's already tried to fix this election. She took Trump's name off the ballot for no reason. Oh, yeah. She said he was involved in an insurrection. An insurrection that he hasn't been convicted of, charged with. Neither is anybody else. An insurrection in the mind of Nancy Pelosi and created by her, the FBI, the CIA, all of the people that have done everything they can to destroy Donald Trump. It's just another chapter in the book of destroy Donald Trump at any means, no matter what. Does that include what happened a few weeks ago? I don't know. I can't say yes. I can't say no. If you look at it, the Secret Service made it look like they wanted to get him killed. I can look at the Secret Service and know when they're operating properly and not. I'm the one who arrested Hinckley. You tell me what they did right that day. Yeah, they shot the guy, but they even did that a little late. Not the fault of the sniper, apparently, but the fault of the guy commanding. Wait. Yeah, let's let him get a good shot off. An hour and a half of the guy being on the suspicious list. You don't find him. You don't talk to him. You don't resolve suspicion before you bring the president out there with 4'2" Secret Service agents protecting him, who can't take the gun in and out of their holster. Where do they find these people? With all the good agents with the first stepmother? This has to be looked at, and those questions have to be answered. They should be answered before December, and it is the fault of our political party that we don't make one hell of a mess about this and go nuts. You know something? If what appears to be going on, and I'm not saying it is, but if it's true, it's going on right now. If, as one very smart person said to me, Rudy, why do you resist the idea that they might try to kill him? This is about a year and a half ago. I said, because it's hard to accept that. He said, well, they've done everything else, haven't they? You know them better than anyone. Are they the kind of people morally who could kill? Absolutely. Absolutely. Wow. When you take that kind of money from a country that's killed 100 million people, you can do anything. You can't take that kind of money from China and have any kind of morality at all, not even a little pea, not even. And you want to look at how bad Biden is. Look at the way he treats his granddaughter. What a pathetic creature. And then flipping, cackling Kamala. I don't know what she is. She or her staff changes every one of her positions. I've got a chart of her positions, and I expect them to change. The latest one that she's on the verge of changing now, we are told by a big mouth Democrat congressman, is she's going to say, if Israel continues to defend itself against Hamas, we're going to not give them arms anymore. And she and her ignorant boss basically blamed us all on Bibi for not agreeing to a ceasefire. Well, last time I checked, it was Sinwar who wouldn't show up for the Sinwar talks. And second, there's only so much you can agree to with regard to a ceasefire when this group right next to you is bound for 40 to 50 years with the oath to eliminate the Jewish people. I mean, what is he, some kind of sucker? Or some kind of traitor like our president? He puts the interests of his country first. He's taking a beating with his people because of this issue we were talking about with the families just want the ceasefire because they want their loved ones back. Of course they do. Of course they do. But when you're in a position of authority and you take it seriously and you're a good person, those are the most difficult decisions that you have to make, where you might have to risk some people to save more people. I mean, if you don't do that, you can get your people wiped out. This is not an unprofessional group. I mean, they are not the best trained or the smartest. They do kill a lot of themselves, having bombs go off in the wrong direction. And then they do it on purpose. They put their own people right out front as children in order to create the reaction that they get in the West. They must really think we are stupid. The things they sell us, like these 6 people are shot down in cold blood by Hamas. And most of the left wing here and in Israel is blaming Bibi. At most, you can blame Bibi for being confused, if you want to say, or torn in 2 directions between what is really necessary to protect his country and the survival of the Jewish people, and what is necessary to get those people out. So before I take a break, and we're going to have, and I am so happy and so honored to have him on, Sebastian Gorka, who I think is one of the great voices that's going to save this country. I mean, he's one of the 10 top people who make up for the millions and millions of crooked media people. A man of a tremendous wisdom and a lot of guts. And we're going to have him on very shortly. But I really have to urge that somebody care about this country enough to demand that Walls be interrogated in great depth about his ties to China. The revelation today of the 2 people that were with Hochul and Cuomo spying for China and creating very, very favorable publicity for China through Cuomo and Hochul are just one of thousands that China has here. Walls, just like I said to you, the Secret Service did everything wrong, making it look like they wanted to have Trump killed. Walls has done everything to make himself look like a Chinese operative. Everything. There isn't a thing that he hasn't done. He even repeats Chinese propaganda and dogma. And he couldn't possibly have taught in China 30 times without the approval of the Red Chinese, including what he taught. He went there, sponsored by Harvard, at a time in which they were trying to flip people, which they have done very successfully. He didn't object when the Chinese put a police presence in Minnesota. In New York, when we found out about it, we threw them out. I mean, probably they're his friends. The guy has shown that he has the kind of regard for the truth that Harris and Biden have. The National Guard veterans today accused Walls of being a habitual liar about his military rank and the reasons he left his unit. He's a habitual liar. This comes from Paul Hare.
What?
He lies about everything. He lies about stuff that doesn't make sense. We have stolen valor because people make decisions that are cowardly, and they come back and they try to live vicariously by robbing all the other soldiers of all the benefits and all the sacrifices.
Well, maybe our next guest has something to say about the curious case of Mr. Walls. Mayor, it's a great honor, as you said, to have Dr. Sebastian Gorka with us. So he should be on with us now.
Seb, how are you? It's so good to see my friend.
Mr. Mayor, always better for seeing you. Great to be on.
We need your voice so badly now. May I ask you about Walls and why there isn't a real questioning of his contacts with China? They cry out for somebody who's been turned by them. 30 times teaching there. You can't teach there unless you teach what they tell you what to teach.
Yeah, as soon as Josh Shapiro was thrown under the bus for being Jewish by the Democrat Party, and Waltz was the last minute replacement, I think that very day for my radio show, before the radio show, I did a little reel on Instagram, and I said, guys, you're missing the story. Okay, of course he's a leftist, of course he's a radical, of course he's done multiple instances of stolen valor, the rank, the leaving his unit, lying about Afghanistan, I carried a weapon of war in a war. These are all true, and they fit perfectly for a radicalized Democrat who's really a Marxist. But the real story, as you know, the journalists call it, the buried lead, is the China connection. The idea that can we just one sanity check? I still have my clearance. I had a top secret SCI clearance. You can't travel to a communist dictatorship and have a clearance unless you're working for the DIA undercover, unless you're getting debriefed in depth after you come back. The idea that as a lowly National Guard NCO, you go there for some kind of teaching program, you live there for a year, you get married there on the anniversary of the biggest massacre in modern Chinese history, and then you go another 31 times. As the great Peter Schweitzer said last week, it is absolutely impossible to posit that a US citizen serving in the National Guard wasn't groomed, wasn't honeypotted, wasn't in some way, shape, or form utilized by the CCP. There is no other scenario. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and the CCP, this is their expertise. Even if you go back to the hard drive, Hunter Biden explains that his contact, who he calls the top spy in China, grooms people to get information and then to act as publicity agents for China.
Yeah, if you look at Eric Swalwell, who was a know-nothing little local councilman, targeted from the get-go by Fang Fang, a man to this day, strangely, Mr. Mayor, a member of Congress who's incapable. I asked him on myriad occasions for him to say the following statement in public: I, Eric Swalwell, have never slept with a communist spy from China. I can say that sentence. You can say that sentence. For some reason, Eric Swalwell can't say that. Whether it's Hochul, I mean, whether it's Feinstein, who had a Chinese spy as her chauffeur for 19 years, whether it's Hochul with her assistant who has her 2.3. How does a governor's assistant, for a second, can we just do this? I watched the video of the FBI raid. How does a governor's assistant have a $2.3 million house in New York? I'm just kind of a little bit, weirded out by that itself. This is what they do, whether it's the Confucian Institutes, whether it's the hidden secret police stations. China is here. It's inside the wire. And we have to understand there's a much, much bigger story to Tim Walz than the fact that he lied about his rank.
Yeah. And really, it's the same thing with we elected him, and he's taken millions from China. The Hochul story goes back to Cuomo.
Yeah.
This couple worked for both of them. And according to an indictment by the Biden administration, Justice Department, they were completely used by China. So this is a serious problem that we are brushing under the rug.
Totally. I mean, I entered the Trump administration expecting to continue what I've been doing for the previous 20 plus years, which was counterterrorism, focusing on ISIS and Al Qaeda. And then once I got in there, once I got my TSSCI clearances, once I got to know Peter Navarro better, and really, all credit to Steve Bannon, I realized that every other threat we face as a nation, we can deal with, whether it's ISIS, which we destroyed in 5 months, whether it's Al Qaeda, whether it's Iran. I mean, by the time we finished our first administration, because of the swinging sanctions we put in place, the Iranian regime was on its knees. In 1 year alone, we cut the value of the stock market in Tehran by more than 50%. The mullahs were on the brink of collapse, and then the Persian people would have taken back their country. Whether it's North Korea, little Kim putting him back in his box, whether it's the KGB colonel in the Kremlin, I realized all of these are really subpar, non-peer competitors that we can deal with. It was my time in the White House that helped me realize, once you read the president's daily briefing, you realize there's only one strategic peer adversary we face. It is the CCP, it is China, and I'm not revealing any secrets now. Any one of your viewers, any one of your listeners, anyone that listens to the Common Sense podcast can just go into their favorite search engine, put One Belt, One Road, and look at unrestricted warfare. And they will see the declassified strategic plan of the Chinese regime, the biggest communist dictatorship in the world. And they have said it explicitly, Xi Jinping has said it, by the 100th anniversary of the revolution in 2048, China will be the world's only superpower. Every other nation will be destroyed or will be a tributary nation that pays tribute to the only hegemon. And we are the number one nation that has to be undermined. And they are doing it. They're doing it through Hunter, through Joe, through Tim, through Feinstein, through Hochul. They are doing it right now.
Well, that's why we need him back. So how do you see the campaign right now? How do you see
I had real issues with the way it was being run. I called the president up. I said who he has to get rid of. On Breitbart Radio 2 weeks ago, I said Lasavita's got to go. 2.5 hours later, they brought back Corey Lewandowski above Lasavita and Susie. I'm very excited. Corey's first comment was, "Let Trump be Trump." But as a Green Beret said to me recently, we take nothing for granted, and we fight like the third monkey trying to get on Noah's Ark. We've got 62 days left, and we know they're going to cheat. Look, 2020 is one thing. 2020 was, 81 million unbidden ballots. It was, corruption, the scale of which I don't think we've seen in any election in America. But if anybody says, oh, well, 2020 this, what do you mean 2020? The Democrats have been stealing elections since the bootlegger Joe Kennedy had all the dead in Chicago, in New York, in Baltimore vote for his son JFK. As you, Mr. Mayor, I have traveled the world to many, many places. There is only one country in the developed world that has a national joke about one of its two parties having the dead vote in every election. It's not the UK. It's not Germany. It's not Switzerland. We are the only nation where it is part of our culture that dead Democrats vote every 2 years.
They voted against me, Seb.
Of course they did.
I can personally testify to it. In fact, I felt really strange that I could never appeal to their vote. I thought, my goodness, I must be insensitive or something. I was thinking
you can only do that with psychics and Ouija boards. I mean, getting the dead to vote for you. But this is what they do. And I love the president fixated on this one phrase, too big to rig.
Yes,
too big. And look, I'm a conservative. I grew up under Maggie Thatcher. I want to vote on election day. I want to put my ballot in the box. But if we think we will win by voting on election day, then we've already lost. We have a ground game beforehand. You don't know what's going to happen on election day. You don't know if you're going to break your ankle. You don't know if the GOP are going to, quote, run out of printer cartridges in Arizona, right? So we have to bank the votes right now. And every person listening to you, every person watching you has to make sure that they are involved. If you're not, look, my wife, Katie. My wife, Katie, hates politics. She's gone from hating politics, which she still does, to being the chair for the GOP in the biggest county in Virginia, working 18 hours a day, chief election officer as well. If you're not actively engaged, you're actually working for Kamala and Biden. It's really that simple.
Well, Seb, your voice is important. I mean, they've taken Bannon away from us. So which I think they did on purpose.
Yeah.
And you are so critical. God bless you, and God bless your wife, Katie, too. We'll be talking. Got a
God
lot
bless
to
you,
get.
sir, Mr. Mayor, the whole team. Thank you.
God bless you. We'll be back very shortly.
We're having the biggest sale ever on overstock clearance and brand new products. For example, save 60% on our Goose Down comforters, the best comforters ever. They go perfectly with our MyPillow bed sheets and duvet covers. Save 25% on our brand new kitchen towels. They're made with the same technology as our famous My Towels. Our initial quantities are extremely low, so get them now before they go. Our seasonal flannel sheets are finally in. You save up to 50% and they sell out fast every year, so order now. They're truly the best flannel sheets you'll ever sleep on. Or save up to 80% on all our clearance items. And this is where it gets even better. For a limited time, your entire order ships absolutely free. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use that promo code to get deep discounts on all MyPillow products. And for a limited time, your order ships absolutely free.
We're back.
We are back, as Ted just said. This is America's Mayor Live. And I am always enlightened by talking to Seb. I've known him, of course, since the 2016 campaign. Worked with him when he was in the White House. Worked with him during the 2020 election. Let me say, because one of the reasons I'm here and not at ABC is because I can say this: the 2020 election was stolen. I know that for a fact. So no one's going to tell me it isn't, and no one's going to tell me I can't say it. The point that I didn't get to make with Seb is they were already cheating on 2024. They were already engaging in campaign fraud. For example, removing him from the ballot in Maine, in Michigan, in a number of other states is rigging the 2024 election. Not only that, it was declared illegal. So they've already acted illegally with regard to fixing the vote in 2024. If you don't think the indictment's a part of campaign fraud, you're stupid. You really are. You're naive or stupid, or you're just so gaga Democrat, you can't think straight anymore, or you're a communist. You don't indict somebody 4 or 5 times in 1 year. That just happens to be the year he's running for president. And now you just did another one? Just now, after you get thrown out by the court, you do another one? And that's not rigging the election? Using your Justice Department to indict your opponent? You don't think people who do that don't cheat in counting votes? Well, then you're crazy. Of course they do. Democratic Party, Seb, only thing Seb was wrong about, they've been cheating since the 1850s. 1820s, 1830s. It's a party was built on cheating. Don't look at me like that. They were built on slavery. Isn't that worse? It's a party that has always had a very strong strain of corruption. It's not the Republican Party doesn't have some of it. It does. It's not that the Republican Party very often doesn't take the crumbs on the table. That's true in Michigan. It's true in New York. They take the big money and they leave some of the little money for the Republicans. Do we have crooks? Yes. But is it as systemic? Is it as historical? Is it as built into our party? Do we even know the techniques they know for stealing the vote? No. I had to learn them so I could protect myself against them. I spent $1 million between the first election I was in and the second to make sure they didn't cheat me out of the election. That's 30 years ago. So are they going to cheat? Of course they're going to cheat. There's nothing in the world that will stop them from cheating. It wouldn't be an election if you didn't cheat in Chicago, Philadelphia, New York. Question is how much and can we contain it? We're going to have to win more than we have to win by in order to win. The second time that I ran and had $1 million anti-fraud program, the two people who ran it for me, who were two very distinguished and smart people, told me, I said, did you eliminate it? They said, well, we got it down a lot, but you're going to probably start off 30,000 behind. I'm not. You can go look at those affidavits back then if we still have them. You go look at the affidavits I have in the other room that prove that Trump should have been the president. If Trump were the president, all those people in Ukraine would be alive. Those 13 people, those families that wouldn't have happened. No president in his right mind would have taken out the troops before the civilians. No president loyal to the United States would have given up Bagram Air Base, 400 miles from China. The damage done isn't just the fraud. I mean, fraud is terrible. It destroys our democracy. But we use fraud to put a master criminal in the White House with a crime family supporting him, with debts to our biggest enemies. I mean, we got to face up to that so it doesn't happen again. When you tell me I can't talk about 2020, I say you want me to accept the country that is no longer a democracy. I'm not going to do it. So let's look at what the revelations today in a place where, how can you say one was more fraud than another? And please remember, they picked crooked Democrat cities to do it in. We'll mention all of them in a minute, but cities that are so crooked, the judiciary is crooked. So, Ted, what are we going to look at?
We'll play our first video clip here from Georgia, and we'll talk to you on the other side.
Yeah, you listen to this. I want you to get it, as they say, from the horse's mouth. Good.
Hear me. The duplicate IDs that are being created are most of the time, 90% of the time, is coming from the Department of Driver Services. It's so bad this year. Duplicate IDs are being reissued for 1 month, and then they get dropped off again. Well, what are those duplicates doing? They are double voting. Double voting in the last 2 elections are huge. Not only are they double voting them, they are taking that duplicate and voting you, and then you're over here voting, and then they swap them. So you thought you voted for Mickey Mouse, but really the record probably shows someone else. So we're seeing swap votes.
That was in Georgia. And that is actually testimony about what's going on right now and what she expects to go on right now. You know, one of the things that you and I, and that's why I do this and you listen, we're smart. When I first got cheated, I went to my lawyers and I said, why don't we make a motion and we'll help to fund it. Why don't we clean up the voter roll? Why don't we take off the voter roll a guy who died 20 years ago, or a guy who moved to Arizona, or a guy who moved from Brooklyn to Queens? Why don't we clean it up? It's called purging the rolls. Do you know a crooked New York City judge, which is generally what you could say about, at least politically, that they are functionaries of a crooked Democratic Party, denied the motion that it would affect civil rights. But civil rights to vote twice, 3 times, vote after you're dead. And they do that in all these Democrat states. Those voter rolls should be pristine. They should be cleaned up every year. If you're dead, you should be taken off. Your name shouldn't sit there. If you move to Arizona, it should be taken off. You know how many thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of those are there? So then what they do is they keep track of them and they vote for them. And when you get a lot of mail-in voting, it's much easier to do. So 2020 was like a bonanza for them because of all of the COVID fraud. So you went in Pennsylvania from 400,000 absentee ballots to 2,500,000 or something like that. So there's a lot more cheating you can do and a lot more hiding you do among 2,500,000 than 400,000. That's why when he says too big to cheat, that's true. I'll tell you about Florida. Florida, for the longest time, if you were within, I thought it was 1%, could have been 2%, and you were a Republican, they're probably going to steal the vote from you. And they had two counties that they controlled, Palm Beach and Broward. And if the vote was 10%, can't do it. If not, they would take a week to count the vote there. This is before and after the hanging chads. DeSantis cleaned that up, and now look, it's a big Republican state. But they wouldn't do it, couldn't do it, if it was more than 1%, because it would become too obvious. And they were afraid then that you'd actually pay a penalty for it. Nowadays, the national press will protect you if you cheat to elect a Democrat. In fact, I would think they'd give you a medal for cheating and electing a Democrat. They will do anything to defeat Trump. So what else do we have on Georgia? You know, I mean, they've never answered the 375,000 missing ballots. In other words, there are 375,000 ballots that they used to have that they no longer have. Now, if the contention is they were making out phony ballots, and the fight there, the one I was engaged in with the lawyers for Trump, against the crooked Democrats and the governor and the secretary of state, I wanted to see the paper. Show me the paper. They never did. We got really close to it, and they threw out our guy. There is no one on behalf of Trump who has ever examined the underlying paper. Now, why do we want to see the paper? Because we had witness after witness after witness saying that they were printing up phony ballots, attaching them to these people who had moved, people who were dead, people who were too underage, and figured they would never vote at all. And you could tell because the paper was different. And we were highly suspicious of that in Pennsylvania and in Philadelphia, I should say, and Fulton County, because the paper was pristine. It was like this. A mail-in ballot has to be mailed in an envelope. The envelope has to contain your signature. And then the ballot inside is without your name. So you can cast an anonymous ballot. So this is what it looks like that, because it was in an envelope. If it's not in an envelope, it's an improper, phony ballot that has to be discarded. And our people, not in those two places, as well as particularly, that I remember that, Detroit also, saw an inordinate amount of what you would call pristine ballots. They were far away and they were kept far away. They were never allowed to inspect. And the crooked courts upheld that. So what are they going to do now? They already started. You look at this Jocelyn Benson person, and she's trying to keep Cornel West and Stein off the ballot because they'll cost Biden votes. And she wants to keep Kennedy on the ballot because it'll cost Trump votes. That isn't cheating. She already cheated. She took Trump off. Supreme Court said, oh, sorry, that's illegal. She should still be there after doing it. Why is she there? She's there because she cheats. You know how many there are like her? There are a whole bunch of them doing this ballot crap now, trying to get them off the ballot, trying to get Kennedy, keep Kennedy on the ballot and get the lefties off so they can cheat. So let's listen to
Let's play some more.
The other
from
witness.
Georgia.
voting and you're not in the absentee file. Well, that doesn't make sense. If you voted early, absentee, early in person, electronic, you should be in that file. But we're seeing vote credits without being in the file. And oh, by the way, we've recently caught the Secretary of State cooking the books on the 2020 absentee file to fill in the gaps of the crimes that he committed then.
That's Ratzenberger, the guy who complained about the telephone call with Trump when he said that Trump wanted him to cheat. When Trump was saying to him, gosh, we've got evidence, and we did have evidence. Now, evidence doesn't mean it's true, right? So Michael Cohen gave evidence and lied. But we had evidence of 100,000 or more. They could all have been wrong, all have been right. But what he's saying is, with all those numbers, you can't even find 10,000. He didn't say you should make it up. He had people that he saw on tape. There are videos that he looked at that proved to anybody's satisfaction that they were cheating. So Ratzenberger comes out after the election. Ratzenberger, who basically made statements suggesting the election was perfect, had a report sitting in his desk drawer 2 days after, talking about 50 irregularities of serious consequence, including complete loss of chain of custody in Fulton County, which means they could have done anything they wanted with the ballot. He covered that up for over a year and a half. So when she says, our crooked Secretary of State, he also was recently, without any publicity, removed from the Election Commission. And the lieutenant governor said, since he's been on it, there hasn't been a well-conducted election in Georgia. So maybe I was right. Maybe Trump was right. Maybe they were cheating in Georgia. What do you think? Then maybe they should, Fannie the Ho should drop the indictment, huh? And the one in Arizona, too. Because all I was doing is representing my client based on evidence that I had. Going back now, I can't tell you if all of that evidence was accurate and true. We can get a chance to test it. You never know that until you go to court and you test it. But as a lawyer, you don't suppress evidence in your client's favor. In fact, you do the opposite. You give your client the benefit of the doubt. I was supposed to, just throw all this out, not even argue for him. Do you realize how they've warped this great country? Do you realize the terrible sins they've committed against our democracy, against our rule of law? They've turned us into a country that viciously and aggressively has the ruling party going after the party out of power, using imprisonment as one of the tools, bankruptcy. They tried very, very hard to have a ministry of truth, and they did a pretty good job with the crooked social networks to eliminate free speech and destroy people based on misinformation or disinformation who were telling the truth. Like when people were saying the vaccine has side effects, these people were being destroyed. It turned out they were right. When people were saying the vaccine isn't going to work, and Biden was saying you take it and you'll be cured, the liar was Biden. The one getting people killed by not giving them correct information were the Democrats. The people who were accused of spreading disinformation were crucified for telling the truth. Disinformation, in their definition, is what hurts them, and therefore they label it disinformation. I mean, the hard drive is probably the best example of that, and they've never been held to account for that. Look at the 51 spies who lied. One of those creeps showed up nominating Kathleen Kamala. Leon Panetta, architect of the atrocities of the Obama administration, foreign policy and military policy. How many people he got killed? Remember Benghazi? Well, we're going to take a short break, and we'll be right back.
Here we are, pretty much at the beginning of the process here at this pristine, I call it a laboratory. It's not like a factory, it's like a hospital. This is the beginning of the process for roasting. Deep grain, very good quality. Most people don't use this quality. We deal with small farmers because they like to know who we're dealing with. They give us the highest quality, all organic, non-GMO. You should know all Arabica beans, no Robusto, all Arabica. They're going to go into the roaster, and it'll get roasted for about 20 minutes or so. Oh my goodness, look at these. My goodness. You're going to want to specially order these. This is what goes into Rudy's coffee.
You caught me eating. Well, you know, the protests that have been going on, they still go on. They were bigger, and they're probably going to be a lot as we get closer to the election and as school opens. I think there may have been one at Columbia today. I'm not sure. A lot of them are paid for by Iran and Soros. Probably that Iranian money, we probably contributed to it. Biden gave him a fortune. I don't think there's a country in the world that has given Iran more money than the United States. I don't think so. I think we are the biggest financier of the reign of terror. That country is only exceeded by China in the number of its own people that it has slaughtered. In fact, it's exceeded by China by a lot. But they every day kill some of their own people. They also are dedicated and even more open about it than China to the destruction of the United States of America, the elimination of the Jewish people, the carrying out of the final solution of Hitler. Remember, the number one mufti in Saudi Arabia was an ally of Hitler. This isn't new. This anti-Semitism, this anti-Jewish hatred, the Jewish hatred, goes back to at least Muhammad. It's in the Quran. They don't want to tell you that, but it is. Muhammad goes from being pro-Jewish to anti-Jewish when they reject him, as he does with Christians, and then he supports killing them if necessary, and he did kill a lot of them. So what you're seeing going on, it has deep roots, and if we aren't vigilant, and we aren't so strong that they can't challenge us, they're going to destroy us, and we're on our way to that. Has the Biden administration even taken seriously the fact that China has passed us as a navy? You think that's a good idea, that China has a bigger navy than we have? You don't think the reason they're doing that is if they have to militarily take us over, they'll be prepared for it? One of the reasons they're doing it is to have a big enough navy so that they could make any attempt of ours to help Taiwan useless. That's the preliminary goal. And they are, although not directly involved with what's going on
in Palestine, they are the beneficiaries of it. And to the extent they can, support it. Anything that can hurt us, they will support. So you have Iran on the one hand and China on the other. In the case of Iran, for reasons that I do not understand at all, Obama and Biden and their allies are in love with Iran. It's the reason they double-cross Israel. They will do nothing to hurt Iran. We've been hit 130 times now by Iranian proxies, and we've done nothing to Iran. Israel has taken action against Iran, but we have not. Iran would stop if we did. Iran isn't China yet. Iran doesn't want a major conflict right now. You had a Trump in the White House right now who said, next time you do it, that's the last time you're going to see Tehran in good order. They stopped. If they believed it. They're not ready to take us on. They're not ready to take on Israel yet. That's why they're waiting, and they're doing everything they can to destroy as much of Israel as they can with proxies. Yeah, some of their own people are in there, but more training and so there's a worldwide component to this that the Bidens and the cackling Kamalas and Comrade Walls either miss or they're on the other side. Sure looks like Comrade Walls is on the other side. There's an article today in the Wall Street Journal that you should take a look at by Rebecca Cypress. And basically, the title is the whole article. I mean, it's the whole article. I mean, but it tells you what the whole article's about. Why anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism. A lot of people, say that you can be against Zionism, which is the establishment of the state of Israel, but not against Jews. Well, that's ridiculous, because the whole idea of Israel is a safe haven for the Jewish people who were slated to be eliminated by Hitler, very much supported by the Arabs at the time. And that land, they have as good a claim to it or better than anyone. I mean, that's the land of Moses. That's the land of Abraham. That's the land of the Bible. That's the place that every Passover, they say next year in Jerusalem. It's an integral part of their religion. Now, to say you disagree with the policies of the government doesn't make you anti-Jewish or anti-Semitic. In fact, there are many Jews who disagree with the policies of the government. But when you say you agree with the boycott that will destroy Israel, when you talk about, river to sea, now you're talking about the elimination of the Jewish people, or certainly the elimination of their homeland. And that is Jewish hatred. You won't give them even a little piece of land to have as their own, which ancestrally is more theirs than anyone else's. Muhammad came along 1,000 years after Judaism. Do you know that? 1,000 years before, 1,000 years after. And he was a newcomer and a conqueror. The Jews spread by spreading their religion and being in slavery and getting out of slavery and working the land and working. Muhammad spread his religion by warfare. He was a general. Some people think an insane general. Some people think it was just his epilepsy. But the reality is, this is a very, very serious, monumental stain on us.
this Jewish hatred and anti-Semitism. And I really thought, before this all broke out and the Obamas came along and the Bidens and Iraq, Iran, I really thought we would be beyond this. The other thing we're sweeping all these things under the rug, and they're exploding on us, like the alien crime wave. So there was a report out today that somewhere around 75% of the crime in New York involves illegal aliens. In other words, it involves people that were invited here by Biden and Harris, helped to get here by the border czar and the president, lured here as the best place to come by Adams. So it's been over 200,000 or so that have come here. They're, by and large, most of them choose New York as the place to come because he did so much talking about how wonderful it'd be in New York, how these people are just the same as the people that came over, the Statue of Liberty and give me your poor, and how stupid, how dreadfully ignorant. These are the people that come here because the cartels let them come here. And the ones that we get to see are pretty bad. Can you imagine what the ones we don't get to see are like? And the estimate is anywhere from 50 to 100% of the ones we get to see come in and we don't get to see them. I'm not talking, when I say get to see, I mean get to see. And one of the other things that the Harris-Biden administration covers up, and something, her interest in the border was so small and her mind is so limited that she may not even realize this exists. So when they categorize the illegals, they start with the ones who are apprehended. And now just about all of them are made into asylum seekers, even if they say, I just came here because I want welfare. And then they are put on, they're put on bail, in essence, not put in a detention center like they should, but let out on bail and told to show up 3 to 4 years from now. This is obviously being told to run away, go hide. And then we transport them to the place of their choosing. Plurality of people choose the place that has given them the most, which is New York, including now a credit card. Now, Walsh has done the same thing in his place, and the absolute clown in Colorado has done that. We'll get to the clown in a minute. The amount of crossings and the amount of people that came in, which Mark Green has outlined in an article in the Post, is astronomical. We've been virtually invaded, and we don't know who invaded us. We do know certain things. We know a lot of them are criminals. We know a lot of them are insane. We know that one country has definitely unloaded its prisons on us, and that's Venezuela. And we know that their gang, Tran de Aragua, is represented all over the country. Now, the clown in Colorado denies this, even though the mayor of the town and several of the local officials have complained to him that they're taking over the apartment buildings in Aurora, which is a suburb of Denver. And Denver is per capita actually the worst sanctuary city due to the clown polis. The mayor of Aurora originally complained, and then when the governor said that this was all made up, he's now backed off because he's scared. Now, people say the governor is a moderate and the governor is whatever. The governor's a clown. Clowns are dangerous. They're supposed to be in circuses. They're not supposed to be responsible for the lives of decent human beings. And to say that what went on in Aurora didn't happen is to deny the videotapes that show people from Venezuela, illegals, beating the hell out of citizens, taking over apartments, taking over apartment complexes.
And this guy says they're making it up. I mean, this is as ridiculous as Walls refusing to bring out the National Guard. And when he did it, he gave the poor little boy mayor 100 National Guardsmen, and his daughter gave away the locations they'd be at so they could be countered by the illegal criminal protesters. This guy's another bad guy. Whose minister says you're a coward? I don't know. Walls, the minister of his unit. I think, there's the clown. Shall we play the clown? This is the governor. Believe it or not, this guy is the governor of Colorado, and he's like a big deal in the Democrat Party. They say this is one of their middle of the road moderate Democrats. Tell like a jackass clown.
Navidad. Feliz Navidad. Feliz Navidad, prospero año y felicidad. Feliz.
This could be the next head of the Border Patrol. This could be the next Mayorkas. Mayorkas lied. This guy will sing lies. Yep. I agree. But he's right there with Walls and all the rest of them. He was sanctuary state, sanctuary city, sanctuary everything. And then when you get caught, lie your backside off. But the tape doesn't lie. Transjogra will be with us, unfortunately, for a very long time. Trump will make a very big effort to get rid of them, and he'll probably have a lot of success. But it isn't going to be easy, and Americans are going to die as a result. They already have. We already have Lake and Riley, several other young women raped and killed by them. We've got a tremendous transjogra problem in New York, both in terms of violent crime and property crime, even more. As I said, they make up a lot of the 75% of migrant crime, and they're well organized. Yeah. I mean, they're just growing. It amazes me, Mike, how fast they weren't here 4 years ago. It isn't like some of the other prison gangs and the other the MS-13. They arrived 3.5 years ago, and they're already ensconced in most of the major cities. They're smart enough to go to suburbs of Denver, taking over this Aurora. This is a very well organized gang.
Well, Mayor, I don't know if you know, I was on Dr. Marie's show yesterday. I was telling her that, you have the mic on? Oh, yeah. I was telling Dr. Maria yesterday that the Hells Angels are actually going to Aurora, Colorado, and helping the citizens, not the police. The Hells Angels. Yeah.
The police are with the governor. The police say it isn't happening, and then you see it.
Well, the Hells Angels and I think the Mongols motorcycle gang are on their way there to help the citizens. That's how bad the situation is. Yep.
It's as if the Democrats have turned against America. They want to destroy America. Jefferson Maldonado is 31 years old, and this guy's from Ecuador. He's been arrested 5 times since he came to the United States. 5 times. And how long has he been here? Well, this reporter stopped by a courtroom, and there were 5 migrants all lined up, one after the other, being arraigned. There was nobody else in the courtroom but migrants. This article by Larry Salona, Marie Pohl, and my good friend Carl Campanile, who used to cover me when I was mayor. These are very fine reporters who know New York really well. Police sources shared with the Post a staggering estimate that as much as 75% of the people they've been arresting in Midtown, in recent months for crimes like, assault, robbery, domestic migrants. In parts of Queens, the figure is about 60%. 60%. Migrants.
Wait.
On any given day,
Wait.
Big Apple criminal court dockets are packed with asylum seekers who have committed crimes.
Did you just say in some areas 60% of the arrests are
Well,
migrants?
how about in Midtown Manhattan, 75%?
75% of all arrests in Midtown Manhattan are illegals.
I'll read you what I have here, okay? The Post,
This is a
police sources shared with the Post, and these are very, very fine crime reporters, together probably 100 years of experience, 80 years of experience. A staggering estimate that as many as 75% of the people they've been arresting in Midtown are Biden-Harris invitees.
That alone should disqualify the current elected leadership of the city for re-election.
And why are they here? They're here because Adams makes New York. Adams competes with Walz and the clown we just saw to get these people.
They invited them and they refuse to do anything to even acknowledge the problem, let alone solve it.
I just want to clarify: arresting them doesn't mean keeping them.
Oh, of course not. Oh, you don't have to clarify for that.
Clarify that.
I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure they
They
mentioned
show up in 5 years for an appointment.
this guy's been here a few months. He's been arrested 5 times and he's been let out 5 times.
You're right. That 75% of all arrests. Rob's back.
All the rest
In Manhattan.
Rob. 75% are illegals.
Yeah.
How is anyone reelected to any position of authority?
Well, this is exactly what the Marxist communist regime had in mind for this country. And
He's right.
You're right, but Mayor, this is shocking.
Let me read about Queens. There are days we have so many migrant crimes, we have to call in for extra Spanish interpreters. A law enforcement officer at Queens Criminal Court told the Post. Another court officer said, come on Mondays, almost every case is a migrant. While many of the crimes are domestic incidents or petty thefts, others are far more heinous, sometimes involving gang violence or vicious sexual assaults. Venezuelan migrant Urlex Daniel Guzman Quintero is accused of sexual abuse against his girlfriend, in which he viciously choked her and held the knife to her head. According to the affidavit, it happened in front of a child, her child. Dionisio Moran Flores was arraigned in Manhattan criminal court, allegedly raping his 5-year-old daughter. Wouldn't be here if they hadn't cheated in 2020.
The Mariana boat list on steroids.
Wouldn't be here if it wasn't for what happened in 2020. This Trump was down to around 400,000 plus apprehended. Biden last year was at 3.5 million, a total of 10 million for his 3.5 years. And without the vetting that Trump did, and without the turning of people back, Trump turned back over half. We don't turn anybody back anymore. I mean, 5%, 10%. And then we don't turn anybody back to Venezuela because they won't take them. Won't take them. Put them in a airplane and give them a parachute. Show them what to do. All you got to do is pull the. Well, if these guys can steal and rob and rape, they're certainly smart enough to pull a thing. So you take them over Caracas, take a big plane, and drop them there, and say, Maduro, you got them back, babes. I mean, they're trying to copy what Castro did when Castro let out his insane asylums and his prisons.
Well, they've done it.
Well, yeah.
It's mission accomplished.
This is on steroids because they're doing it by the
it's a lot bigger. It's a lot bigger. Yeah. That was 100,000 total. 125,000. Actually, only 25,000 criminal types. 100,000 legit, 25,000 criminal types. Here, it could be in the millions.
And they're distributing them in a mass form where the Mariana boat lift, it was all in the Miami area.
Wherever you have disloyal Democrats running the city, the crooked city or state, you've got them. Well, so we're going to call it a night for tonight.
Tomorrow, we're going to tell you about the fight that's going on in Silicon Valley, in which they're dividing between Trump and Harris. We'll analyze a couple of polls. Here's one from Trafalgar, which shows Trump ahead in every state but Georgia. Michigan, Pennsylvania by 2, Wisconsin, Arizona, Nevada, North Carolina, and he's down by 0.4% in Georgia, which will change. Here. Is it? So a little good news for people to sleep on, but as Seb Gorka says, fight like hell. Remember those words,
Mayor. I mean,
our great leader: fight, 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 fight. They're taking our country. We're taking it back. God bless America. Pray for the people of Israel, people in Ukraine, people all over the world. Pray for us. Again, God bless America. Bear the principle of common sense and rational discussion to the issues of our day. America was created at a time of great turmoil, tremendous disagreements, anger, hatred. There was a book written in 1776 that guided much of the discipline of thinking that brought to us the discovery of our freedoms, of our God-given freedoms. It was Thomas Paine's Common Sense, written in 1776, one of the first American bestsellers, in which Thomas Paine explained, by rational principles, the reason why these small colonies felt the necessity to separate from the Kingdom of Great Britain and the King of England. He explained their inherent desire for liberty, for freedom, freedom of religion, freedom of speech, the ability to select the people who govern them. And he explained it in ways that were understandable to all the people, not just the elite. Because the desire for freedom is universal. The desire for freedom adheres in the human mind, and it is part of the human soul. This is exactly the time we should consult our history. Look at what we've done in the past and see if we can't use it to help us now. We understand that our founders created the greatest country in the history of the world, the greatest democracy, the freest country, a country that has taken more people out of poverty than any country ever. All of us are so fortunate to be Americans. But a great deal of the reason for America's constant ability to self-improve is because we're able to reason, we're able to talk,